Scott Pape lost everything in an Australian bushfire: his house, his livelihood, and all of his belongings. Him and his family were left with nothing but each other. But he did have one other thing. He had his finances in order, which allowed him to rebuild his life brick by brick. In this video, I'm going to share with you his financial system that allowed him to rebuild his life. And I'll teach you how you can follow this system too, regardless of your income and your starting point. Hi, I'm Rosie. And on this channel, we explore how to manage your money so you can be free to live your best life. Let's get into it. It all starts with setting up a regular money night. And instead of making this a boring and tiring chore, why not go out for dinner and sort out your finances over a nice glass of wine and some food? So your very first step is to schedule in a weekly money date night. Now, Scott Pape initially recommends doing this once a week whilst you're working through the steps and setting up your financial system. But once you've got your financial system in place, you can then decrease the frequency to change this to be once every month. Now, Scott Pape has created a really cool bucket system that's a little bit more detailed than most financial advisors. And throughout this book, he tells us exactly how to use each of these funds for the different steps. So there are 3 buckets that he names: Flow, Grow, and Mojo. So the first bucket, Flow. This is where your income feeds into. So you allocate your income, so 60% of your money goes on expenses, 10% on splurges, 10% for your Smile savings account, and 20% for your fire extinguisher savings account. So to set this up, you will need 2 spending accounts with cards for each, for your expenses and your splurge pots, and then 2 savings accounts for your fire extinguisher and your Smile savings accounts. So your next bucket is Grow. This is so you can build up your long-term wealth. And this is the bucket that most people forget about. In here, you will have your pension or your super fund and any other additional investments. And then the third bucket is called Mojo. This is for when life knocks you down so you can get back up again and get your mojo back. Initially, you want to do everything you can to fill this up to 2,000 Australian dollars or £1,000. And this money should be kept in a high yield savings account far away from all of your other spending and savings accounts. So these 3 buckets are the structure of your system, and everything else stems from here. I can do a whole video dedicated to this system, so let me know in the comments below if you're interested in this. Now, the only thing that I don't agree with in this book is that Scott suggests setting up your finances together and having all of these in joint accounts if you're a couple. This is great if you have a long, loving marriage or relationship, but given the average divorce rate is somewhere between 30 and 50%, it may not be wise to have all of your money in a joint account. Instead, make sure that you have your own savings account or emergency fund separate from your partner, as well as all the joint accounts that he recommends you having. And this can protect you if something happens in your relationship, as you have this separate pot of money that only you can access. Now, if you're single, you can still follow all of the steps in this book, and you'll just have these as single accounts rather than a joint account. So chapter 3 is all about dominoing your debts. Now, Scott makes it clear that he isn't a fan of credit cards, as he's seen so many people go into debt because of them. And the new thing that's appeared that's even worse than credit cards are the buy now, pay later schemes, where you don't even have an approval process to be able to borrow money. And these are also largely used for online shopping, which shouldn't really warrant someone needing to borrow money for. These buy now, pay later schemes are kind of like the soft version of credit cards, which get users hooked and more reliant on borrowing money at a much younger age. Here are the 5 steps to domino your debt. Number 1, write down the debt name, the total amount owed, the interest rate, and the minimum monthly payments. Number 2, negotiate. So call up these credit cards and ask for a lower fee or lower interest rate. Number 3, eliminate. So Scott dares you to cut up your credit cards so you can't keep using them and going more into debt. Number 4, detonate. So arrange your debts from the smallest amount owed to the largest amount owed. This is where your fire extinguisher comes in handy. So use this money to pay off the additional debt whilst you continue to pay off the minimum monthly payments through your expenses. And step number 5, celebrate each debt that you pay off. Chapter 4 teaches you how you can buy your own home. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're buying a home is buying a house that they cannot afford. And keep in mind, what you can afford right now may not necessarily be what you can afford in the future. So typically, things come in 3s. You have marriage, house, and kids. Now, with having children, you need to factor in the additional costs. You also need to consider the fact that your income may decrease. So, for example, if you take maternity or paternity leave, or if one of you decreases hours to part-time or gives up your job to be able to look after the children. So make sure you're having these conversations and factoring this in before you buy a house. Now, Scott mentions the median duration from wedding day to divorce is about 12 months. And given many couples choose to have children shortly after getting married, this might not be a surprise. So once you finish paying off your debt in the previous chapter, this is where you're going to use your fire extinguisher account again to save up for a down payment for your home. Now, before you buy a house and get a mortgage, you should have a 20% deposit saved. And a quick, easy way to figure out how much you should spend on a house is the rule that your mortgage payments should not be more than 30% of your income. And from there, you can calculate the price of the house and how much deposit you need to save, and how long it will take you to save for that deposit. Now, if you want to shorten these timelines and buy a house sooner, you could either buy a cheaper house, or you can try increasing your income, working smarter in your current job and negotiating a raise, or freelancing and picking up extra work on the side. 1 in 3 elderly people live in poverty, and the average Australian runs out of money 15 years before they die. Now, although this feels like a long way off, we probably ought to be thinking about saving and investing for retirement. Chapter 5 is about increasing your pension or your superannuation payments to 15%. One of the key factors that you need to consider is inflation. Since 1970, the average cost of goods has increased 11 times. And in 2080, we'll be paying $10 or £5 for a loaf of bread due to this increase in the cost of goods. So how can you visualize it? So think about inflation like a treadmill on setting 3. You've got to walk or jog fast enough to keep up with the pace. And if you don't, you'll face flat. So keeping your money in a savings account earning no interest is like stopping on the treadmill. You need to be earning at least 3% interest to keep up. However, if you invest your money, you'll have enough energy to run at level 8 for the rest of your life. So all you need to do in this step is increase your pension or your superannuation contribution to 15% of your salary, and you can do this directly out of your paycheck. So chapter 6 is a quick one. You want to boost your Mojo pot to 3 months. So your Mojo buys you safety and security in case something unexpected happens. Again, you're going to use your fire extinguisher savings account to fill this up to 3 months of expenses. And the power of Mojo is you never need to worry about your finances again. So how to wipe 7 years off your mortgage? First of all, get the bog standard mortgage and not all of the fancy extras that they try to persuade you to buy. Number 2, choose the lowest variable rate that you can find and shop around to try and get this. Step number 3 is to negotiate the cheapest rate possible. So phone around the different mortgage providers and try to negotiate the rates down. This could save you thousands of pounds. And step number 4 is to again use your fire extinguisher account to make additional monthly payments towards your mortgage whilst you continue to make the minimum mortgage payments from your expenses bucket. And the final chapter of Scott's book is about leaving a legacy. So how do you want to be remembered, and what do you want to do in your life? What impact do you want to make to the people around you, and what gets you excited? It's all too easy to chug along in the day-to-day routines, but make sure you're planning for experiences and fun and living your life to the fullest. So I've left an affiliate link to the Barefoot Investor in the description box below. But if you want more of a step-by-step video on how to manage your money, then check out this video that I've linked here.